Welcome to the Honest Money Show. Thanks to our sponsor Bitaroo for making today's episode possible, Australia's biggest Bitcoin-only exchange. Hi Andy, welcome to Honest Money.
Thanks for having me.
I noticed recently you were on Sean's Good Day podcast. So anyone who's interested in getting to know more about you can watch that as well. But I wanted to start with your origin story. We met over Twitter and became friends. And yeah, like you're just someone from Victoria who's in our community. And I found it very interesting that you haven't been to a bush bash, which I'm going to roast you for during this session. And I don't know if you've also been to any of the local meetups in Melbourne.
You know what? So it's funny you say that. And I've going back to how I first got into Bitcoin, it was in 2014. So at the time, we just come out of the GFC. I was probably working my second professional job. And I was into, training, lifting, eating, dieting, all that sort of stuff, and had been since, the mid-2000s, and had a lot of friends that I would train with. And one of them was like me and into lifting and eating. And he was also into finance and accounting like myself. So I'd done a bachelor's degree in accounting and finance. And I was always under the impression that, property was the way to go. I was saving for a deposit. I hadn't actually, owned anything, and I was saving. And as any, mid-20s sort of person, even now, I guess, goes through, is you kind of go through that cycle where you try and save enough for a deposit and to live. It just gets really, really difficult. So I remember he was emailing me one day during the day, and he mentioned to me that there's this thing called Bitcoin, and to buy it, and it's going to be the coin of the future. Well, I guess at the time there was probably a handful of coins. All I remember choosing from was between Bitcoin and Litecoin. They were the two that sort of stuck out to me. And he told me just to buy one of them, as one of them will take off as the coin of the future. So I did. I bought Bitcoin, luckily, in hindsight. But why I bought Bitcoin was just on a whim, on his advice. Now, he was someone who was definitely not someone that was into property. He was always anti-property, if anything, and he was renting in the CBD. So for him, it was kind of, honestly, at the time, I don't know if he had done his research or anything like that, but he saw it as a good thing. And that was I kind of respected him as a person and as, someone in finance. Yeah, I bought some coins at the time. And then I just kept buying. I guess I've been in Bitcoin for 11 years now, and I haven't gone to any meetups. I haven't been active. It's ridiculous, I know. In fact, I've only been on the Twitter/X community since, I think probably early, mid last year. So, yeah, I think I had a Twitter account back during COVID. I signed up. But for some reason, I was banned. I never actually even commented, nothing, but I was banned, and I couldn't use my account. So I just never went on, which is a shame. I would have met a lot more people a lot sooner during my journey. So it's quite funny. But like I've told you, I'm looking to change that and sort of get myself out there a little bit more and meet the people, because I think the community is actually, it's a great community. It's one of the best communities that I've been part of. I've been part of the lifting community. That's very segregationalist, I guess. And you can assume that, or you can say that the cryptocurrency space is also very segregationalist, but I kind of don't really look at that. I just look at the Bitcoin community, which, from the surface, it looks very wholesome and and fun. But yeah, like I do join Twitter Spaces. But I do join a few of them, Aussie ones. I join a lot of the American ones. It's great. I love it. And I just love talking about Bitcoin, as you can tell. Or you will tell.
Do you talk about Bitcoin at your work?
Look, it's a good question. It's a good question. I can understand, like, sometimes I kind of remove myself from, I don't know, from my lens, and I look at it from someone else's lens, and I feel like you can come across as very preachy. You can come across as, people often don't like a Jehovah's Witness to come to knocking on their front door. I kind of feel like sometimes it's a bit like that. So people know I love Bitcoin at work, especially my immediate work colleagues. So I'll only talk about it when they talk about it, right? Or I'll try and legitimize it somehow. Like if, for example, it's in my SMSF. So that kind of gets people thinking, they associate super as being a legitimate way to earn fund for your retirement. You're combining it with Bitcoin. It sort of sparks their interest, and they do ask questions. And obviously, the majority of the people think of it as just a trading cryptocurrency degenerate sort of tool to make money. I do like sometimes I might wear a polo with a little logo on it, or I'll get like one of my miners sent to the office, and I'll just have it sitting on my desk, and it invites people. So it's not me going out and telling them about it. It invites them to talk to me about it. And I found it very effective. So I will keep doing it that way until Bitcoin. And you know what? It's funny because Bitcoin recently has hit the mainstream news, and people come to me to talk about it, So, and half the time, because I don't read much of the news, they're showing me articles that I've never seen before. So, but to me, the articles are not a surprise. I know Bitcoin's inevitable, but to these people, it's kind of like, it's over 100K now, US. What's this? What's going on? And it's gotten to that stage where people come to me to talk about it, and I'd prefer that, to be honest. So yeah.
Yeah. Compared to previous cycles, how do you feel this cycle? Like, obviously, you've been in it for a while. I find being part of the community so important because every time I get emotional or I'm not sure about something, I can always ask someone who's been in it for longer. And sometimes I find that I have moments where I'm like, is this really like going to work out? Are there any risks that I'm forgetting? And then I just have to like sit down with myself and remember just how Fiat works and how Bitcoin works. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm safe. Like I'm good. But like, how do you think this cycle is compared to others? Are more people interested, or you think it's quieter?
It's definitely quiet. We don't have that same parabola as the 2021 or the around that 2017, 2018 cycle. I mean, when I first bought 2014, it was just like, I remember I was buying for $500 Australian at the time, and it was just like bobbling, and it went down to half that, went up a little bit, and it was sort of a nothing. And obviously there was no one in it, so it was very different. Can't really compare that cycle to today. I'd say today you can sort of compare it to the COVID 2020, 2021 sort of area. But it's funny because only August last year I think we bottomed at 57K with the Japanese yen carry trade, and there was so much fear in the market. I mean, we'd hit a high in around that, I think it was Feb, March, April-ish area when we hit low 70s, I think it was. And then we dropped down to 57. I mean, we hit 124K, and we're currently at about 107.5K now. We were more than, it's more than it's nearly 50% difference. Like, people like the volatility, or they say they like it, but then when they experience it, even for people that have been in since, 2020, they just can't handle it. They know what they're in for, but they can't handle it, kind of thing. So it is really weird. And I guess COVID, the whole distrust of government was sort of in your face. So again, it was very different. I mean, it has the hallmarks of previous cycles, but I think it's very quiet today to what it was in that late stage of 2020, 2021, especially when we double topped around mid 21. I think it's healthy at the moment. We're at these levels. It's dead quiet. I mean, I'm getting people messaging me saying it's done. I'm like, have you been in Bitcoin for 5 minutes? This is when you should be getting in, you know? When Warren Buffett says, you know, buy when there's blood in the streets, people think, oh yeah, that's easy to do. I'll do that. But I mean, blood is in the streets now relatively to, you know, a month ago when we hit 124K and people think it's over. Like, how short is your memory kind of thing? So yeah, it's the only constant is change. So I think it has the hallmarks of prior cycles, but it's very similar in there's still a bit of volatility. It's obviously down, but I love it. This is why I love Bitcoin. I can see where it's going in the highs, but then when it hits the lows, it enables me to double down on my thesis and to stack even more. So it's kind of like a gift for me. You know, like if I'm buying a SPY or something like that, there are opportunities to buy in dips, but they're not as big as the dips in Bitcoin. Yeah, I love it. And yeah, it's just Bitcoin has always resonated with me very well. I've never lost that resolution to buy more. I know I've always stacked and I'll continue to stack. Even when the price is $1 million, I will continue to stack. It suits my personality, I guess.
Yeah. So speaking of SPY, like I know that you're in property, I know that you're in Bitcoin. Are you also in equities and other asset classes?
Well, I used to be in you can call being in super. By default, you're going to be in equities. So in a way, I had. And it's funny you mentioned that. In 2015, one of my friends told me about a penny stock, to buy a penny stock. And I did buy a lot of this penny stock, and I bought it at 20, I think it was 20 cents at the time, and I rode it up to 31 cents. And then I thought, oh yeah, this is going to go to $1. This is a great thing. It's a biotech company. It's doing good things. Problem is, they tried to do what MSTR does at the moment and issue more stock instead of to buy investments. They used it to fund their research and development. But their research and development never really materialized, and it went. I sold out at a huge loss. I think I put like 30 grand down, and it went. I rode it all the way down to about 2.5 grand. And at the time, I was still in Bitcoin. I was still buying bits of Bitcoin here and there because it was cheap. And I thought, I'm not going to be on a whim of someone, of a board, of a corporation, of a person, of a research and development team. This has none of that. It performs well. It's come from nothing. So why am I wasting my time in a stock, in a penny stock of all things? So, I mean, if you're better suited to those, those slow, consistent 11% annualized gains, then that's fine. But for me, I'm not. It doesn't suit my personality, my why. I guess I'm someone who's, anti the system. I want to opt out of the system. And buying SPY doesn't fit my narrative, right? I have friends who are in the SPY. They've done very well. They've continued to buy. And when people ask for my advice, I don't offer Bitcoin as a first off. I always tell them maybe they should look at buying the SPY, which I did in 2020. I was working with someone, price had crashed, and I told him to buy the index. And he did. And he talked to me about a year later, and he said, my one regret was not buying more. So imagine if I, told him to buy Bitcoin, it would have been a different story altogether. I mean, it would have been the same story, but he would have been so much better off. So, I don't knock it, but again, I'm very, to me, it's sort of like the gateway to Bitcoin. If you like SPY, and you want to outperform it, then there is something else out there, right? And I've also been in property, and I've done very well in residential property. But to me, so I own a property in the Melbourne suburbs, right? It's about 15 kilometres north of the CBD, and I bought it, at the high to mid 500s. It's now worth, and this was in mid 2023. It's now worth. There's houses equivalent that have sold for 730K around near it, right? And you look at on the surface, and obviously I've done pretty well. But during that time, there's been so much cost, obviously the loan. And people always say that because you can leverage a property, you can exponentially grow your wealth, which is true. But I've modeled out the performance of one Bitcoin in today's prices versus my property, given my loan to value ratio on that is about 60%. And all the expenses and the income and the growth of what I think that's going to achieve over the next 10 years. And ChatGPT has actually said that I'll be 400K better off owning one Bitcoin today and DCAing $1,000 a month. So to me, the leverage means nothing, because unless you're super rich and you can buy a property in cash, right, then you have to fund it, and it's going to cost you interest. And at 5.5% interest and a CAGR of 7% growth rate of a typical Australian house, then it doesn't really make sense. You're not even really beating inflation, right? You're just keeping up. Not to mention that you're going to put up with the vacancy period. You've got to put up with the heater's broken, or the children have shut the back door really, really hard, and it's locked and you have to get a locksmith out, right? Or a fence is broken, or a tile has, a roof tile has come loose and there's rain getting in the ceiling and your ceiling is completely broken. I'm not making this up. I've got a friend who has experienced exactly that. One of his investment properties, the whole ceiling caved in because it rained down in the Surf Coast, right? So you think, oh, no, it's not going to happen to me, but you'd be wrong. It actually does happen. People I think, especially Aussies, are sold on the whole bricks and mortar thing. But there's better out there. There's absolutely better out there. And, I don't make bull predictions, overzealous predictions or anything like that. I'm probably the most conservative person in Bitcoin community space. I do genuinely believe that we will see one average Australian house to be worth less than one Bitcoin. That will happen in our lifetime.
For sure.
One day you'll be able to buy streets with one Bitcoin. So, yeah, I mean, I like to, in summation, I guess, I like to show people this is the gateway. If you want to outperform, then there is something that risk adjusted, I believe, will outperform the S&P. I believe Bitcoin over the next 10 years, you could compare it with the QQQ, the NASDAQ. You can compare it to the SPY, compare it to Australian real estate. You can compare it to the ASX. Any basket, it will outperform. Obviously, there's going to be outliers. For example, semiconductor broad-based funds have outperformed Bitcoin over the last couple of years. But that's sort of like picking and choosing. And you have to do your research and you have to believe in it. Whereas Bitcoin is kind of like you set, forget, and you go out, and live your life. Most people, mum and dad investors, they've got kids, they've got, obligation, they've got to go to work. They can't be looking at a stock, or they can't be looking at the whether a stock is overpriced. They can't keep up with the news. If you want to risk adjusted outperform and not have to worry about it, to me personally, I believe Bitcoin is the best way to go. And I will stand by that.
Yeah, 100%. Prior to Bitcoin, I was a huge fan of S&P 500 because I like investments that I understand and that feel safe. So for me, it was very much like Warren Buffett was my favorite investor. And I think like 90% broad index fund, 10% something like fixed interest, and not overcomplicating things, not buying individual stocks. So I went for IVV, not SPY. I compared the two, if I remember correctly, and I chose IVV. And that has done well for me. Like I did get good returns. But what I didn't know at the time is that the S&P 500 is just a proxy for inflation. Like you are just keeping up with inflation, not outperforming it. So essentially all the money that I earned, I just kept, and yeah, that was a big eye-opening moment for me when I got into Bitcoin. And I think I'm doing well with the volatility. The biggest drawback I've had since I entered was 30%. And I do remember getting a little bit nervous and reaching out to, the Sydney community at the time. And they were like, oh, you're worried about 30%. Oh, like cute. So like, welcome to Bitcoin. So it'll be interesting to
It's funny when you mention Warren Buffett, right? So I believe being able to critically think is a skill in itself. You're not born with it. Believe it's something that is very much learned over time. And in accounting, part of you go through uni, part of being, there's a bean counter and there's someone who adds value. Part of my job is to be professionally skeptical, right? So not just I used to be an auditor, so it's not just to take the client's word for something at the time, right? So listen to what they say, but then do your own research, right? So when you go back to Warren, I could go back to in the bodybuilding community, there's so much misinformation, right? Just because someone's huge and, they look like they know what they're doing, that doesn't mean anything, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You got to see why they're actually like what they're doing. They may think that what they're doing is correct, but it's actually the other things that is enabling them to be successful, right? It's like you look at football teams. Coaches, the good coaches, usually are not great football players, right? Michael Jordan, he wouldn't be a good coach. He was a great player, but whether he's a good coach, you don't know. James Hurd, not a great coach. Great player. Michael Voss, great player, horrible coach, right? It's the good coaches that have won 4 premierships or 1 or 2 that were average players. Alistair Clarkson, average player, right? So to me, it's like Warren Buffett is a great investor, but when he comes out and calls Bitcoin rat poison squared, it's like, well, why do you call it that, right? There's a reason usually because, you and I both know he doesn't need Bitcoin. He doesn't need, people, the Bitcoin community always says he's got, 100 billion cash or something because he sold out majority of his Apple stake. But it's like, whether he goes from 100 billion to 200 billion, he doesn't care, right? In the next 6 to 12 months, for him, it's not, he doesn't want to buy Bitcoin. He doesn't need Bitcoin. For him, he does what he does well, which is he buys undervalued companies as a value investor, right? So I've learned never to always question seasoned people that have done well. Why have you done well? It goes the same with property investors, right? You can talk to those old Italians, those old Greeks that own 20 investment properties, right? Their strategy today to buy those 20 investment properties back then do not hold today, right? So they will tell you what they did, but you can't do that, right? Because the landscape has changed. Funding has changed since the GFC, right? You could be able to, back in the day, you could buy a property for 200 grand. It goes up to 400 grand. You use that 200K difference. You go and buy another one. You can keep doing that endlessly, even though you don't have the income to service it, right? Whereas today, the banks cap you at 1 or 2 properties, and that's literally all you can buy, right? So yeah, and that's why Bitcoin has resonated with me so much. It's why do people hate it, right? Why is people say volatility is scary, but why is it scary? Is it because you can't ride the roller coaster? Is it because you're too attached to short-term gains? You know, you got to work out what your why is. My why is 20 years out. Why do I care if it drops 50% today? Who cares? And I always tell friends who are very new to it, I always tell them, they came to me this morning. It's 108K. We're going below 100. I'm like, well, so, you're down on your investment that you bought a month ago. Oh, are you in it for the next 6 months? Well, are you? Yes or no? 10 years? Why do you care? Like, I know it's going to hit $1 million, in my opinion, right? So if I get 180, 70, 50, 120, 200K, is a bit of a misnomer. Like you said, you need to, I think, to outperform, you need to swallow these short-term fluctuations and work out what your why is. I think your why is very important. It almost should be like your mission statement on the wall. Every time, you go through a 30% drawdown, you look back on that why and you kind of don't really listen to the noise. I found that to be extremely effective today, right? So, but that's just me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I believe 100% what you're saying. Even in like, friends that invest in like the S&P 500, they don't even look at that investment as long term. It's more like 5 years and I'm out. So I think people these days are incredibly, incredibly short-sighted. They're always looking to cash out rather than continue building their portfolio. Yeah, because I think even like with compound interest, the magic starts happening after year 7 and onwards. Like the longer you're in, the better you do. Yeah. But going back to your why, Andrew, I really want to know, because obviously you mentioned you got in 2014 and that was on the advice of your friends. So at what point did you feel like you truly understood Bitcoin? That you went, okay, like I know now what I'm holding. Holy shit.
I think so. I've always been sort of skeptical of the government before it was sort of mainstream today on social media. I could see it, I think for me around that 2016 era. Yeah, I've always, because when I was into property, obviously around that 2010-ish, looking to buy my first property, and Bill Shorten came out and he's like, oh, we're going to get rid of negative gearing. And I was always like, why are you trying to get rid of something? Like it almost feels like you're trying to pull the ladder from underneath you, right? You utilize negative gearing to your benefit, and you got your capital gains tax discounts to your benefit. Now you're telling me that I can't use it, right? So it was kind of like one rule for you and one rule for me. It never really sat well with me, right? And then like it's sort of stuck with me. And then in 2016, 2017, 2018, I kind of stuck with that thesis. And until COVID came, it sort of confirmed my belief. And that was when, obviously Bitcoin had gone from $500 to, a couple of $1,000s. So I saw it as like, wow, this is actually, yes, it's drawn down. Yes, it's done nothing for a while, but it's severely outperformed my superannuation. It's outperformed any penny stock. It outperforms property, everything, right? So even though I still continued to buy throughout time, it's not like I was stacking like thousands of dollars, because you've got to remember, it was a completely different time. There were no books. There were no seminars. It was very niche and fringe. I mean, you think it's fringe now, but back then it wasn't. We'd gone through block size wars. The block height when I first bought was like 300,000. It was very uncertain. Was this thing going to stay around? People look at it, people sold out. Like, you talk to 90% of people who buy from that time, they sell out if they, 4x or something like that. They'll look at it and they'll be like, oh, I don't know where this is going. I've 4 times my money. I'm out. So for me, I didn't really need the money, right? I continued to work. I continued to buy. So it was never something I had to draw down on. So that's why, I think I got fortunate, because I think if something really drastically happened to Bitcoin, then I probably would have sold my positions, right? So, I mean, it wasn't up until 2020 when all of my thesis was confirmed. In my opinion, COVID wasn't a psyop or anything like that, but I think they used it to take advantage and to control people unnecessarily. I mean, yeah, they had to do what they had to do, right? And for me, separating my money from, what people can control was very important. And I started to really double down on my position during COVID. And I think a lot, like when you talk to people on X, it's not, most people joined around that time. So it confirms my thesis that around that time was when it was sort of obvious that, hang on, they're printing money like it's nobody's business. The S&P, yes, it's gone up, but it's kind of like, it's not going to change your life, right? It's not freedom technology. It's not freedom money. You're at the whim of politicians. You're at the whim of big corporates, right? And I started to read the books around that time, and I mean, I would have ported my super out earlier if I had the books, but if COVID was sooner, right? So unfortunately, I didn't do that until recently, right? So whilst I'm not 100% in Bitcoin, I would say I'd probably be around that 70 to 80%. Once I look to sell my property, my investment, then I'll be a lot higher as a percentage, I guess. So I didn't really go down that rabbit hole and be fully ported in until around that 2020. So I think that was an important step. But again, it suited my thesis since 2010 that, not to be trustful of the government. Take what they say with a grain of salt. Be professionally skeptical. So, it's only until recently. I think half a decade is quite recent for me.
Yeah, I want to pick up on you saying 80%. So if someone who's not a Bitcoiner is listening to this, they might be having like what is this, man? Like, how risky is this? So do we want to talk about the risk? Because I hear this and I don't have a reaction at all. I think, of course, like to me, Bitcoin is money. It's my money of choice. I feel that it is, and I think that it is a pristine form of collateral and the best money you can hold. And this isn't an opinion that's just been based on, nothing or whims or I think there's definitely a lot of study that has gone behind it, and I'm very, very confident with my holdings. I'm not going to say what percentage they are, but what would you say to someone who's coming in and hearing 80% in allocation to Bitcoin of your entire net worth?
I think so. Yeah, a lot of the people, especially newbies, they sit on Instagram and they look at coaches, right? And to me, it's like, that's not research, right? You need to, the books, I wouldn't recommend, so I don't recommend people, look at Michael Saylor, look at Natalie Brunell, all those popular Jack Mollers. I tell people to look at the people that have done the research. So, I mean, you can take what people say with a grain of salt, but there's a handful of people who I respect in the industry, and a few of them are Americans. So I follow a guy named Fred Krueger who has a PhD in mathematics from Stanford University. He talks about how Bitcoin's on a power law. And I look at, I really respect Plan C and Sina from 21st Capital. These guys are incredible Bitcoin analysts, and Plan C developed the Bitcoin quantile method. And it's based on, 130,000 plus data points, which is every single data point in Bitcoin's history. And they've modeled it out as a probability, right, where it's going to be in 10, 20 years' time. So I think based on the length of history that we have now, which is 16 years, in mathematics, you can't really model out further than 10 years because anything after that is just finger in the air kind of thing. So 10 years is kind of the optimal point, 5-10 years. And he has done that. And it breaks up each price range into sort of probabilities, right? And if it gets, to a point of a price point where he believes, according to that time that Bitcoin's been alive, how much time has Bitcoin been in that range for its life? So obviously today, if it were to hit, say, $200,000, Bitcoin has been in that overheated area for only 5% of its life, and the inverse can be true too at the lower portion. So it's based on probabilities and it's based on ranges. So I respect people like that have done the research. I can't tell you how much research I have done thousands of hours over my time. And when people come to me and they say, this coach has said it's going to drop and, it's a psyop, it's by the CIA, they just don't understand Bitcoin. They're clicking on, clickbait titles and they're not thinking for themselves, right? So, and I compare, I compare the Fiat system to, I think Fiat's the biggest Ponzi around, right? So it's like, which Ponzi do you want to be in? Do you want to be in the Fiat system or do you want to be in the Bitcoin system, which to me, it looks like you want to be part of the Bitcoin system. You just don't know that, right? You don't have that sort of, that way of thinking, that skepticism or that self-reflection to say, hey, Bitcoin is actually suited to my investing thesis and my political thesis, right? Yeah, I think it's also being a bit, self-aware and realizing that. And some people, I don't know, they just need to sort of, because traditional TradFi is ingrained in us. It's everywhere. It's what people, you get that bias that it's the first thing people tell you to invest in. So it's very hard to break those that chain. So I encourage people to read the books. I've got the books and I give them to people. And it's funny because people read a few pages and they come to me and they take a snippet at what came out to them most, what spoke to them most, and they'll say, "Oh, this is what you believe." I'm like, "Yeah, well, think about it. Don't just listen to me. Don't just listen to the book. Think about that sentence and how it resonates with you. Does it resonate with you at all? Clearly, it did because you're highlighting it to me, right? So, it's people's behavior is very interesting. I've learned a lot about people and myself during my Bitcoin journey. So, yeah.
Start saving in Bitcoin with Bitaroo, Australia's biggest Bitcoin-only exchange. Bitaroo offers easy tools and advanced features. Join thousands of happy users making their first Bitcoin purchase today. Download the app or visit bitaroo.com.au. Yeah, I absolutely believe that Bitcoin would align with most people's core values if they took the time to understand it. I can't imagine that, the average person, out of 100 people, I would probably say 97, if they really understood Bitcoin, they would still be like, yeah, this is a much, much better system. But what was I going to ask you? Yes, about the power law and the quantile, what is it called? Quantile method?
The quantile model?
Model, yep. I don't follow models because I ultimately don't care if it's going to be a more conservative or a more bullish outcome. I'm definitely in it for the long term. I do have more conservative estimates, but the power law model, isn't that one quite bullish from memory?
I think there's a few. I think there's like stock to flow, and which is extremely bullish.
And
Whereas the
has been debunked. Yeah. Like it's not
I think
really
so.
well respected anymore. Yeah.
Correct, exactly. Whereas the power law, so things like, for example, a network, you can look at Facebook, you can look at the internet, and Bitcoin is one of them. They all operate on a power law, right? And the power law, if developed, say, 10 years ago, is able to predict the Bitcoin price over the last, 10 years, right? It was able to do that using the first 5 years of its data. It was able to then model out the next 10 years, right? To quite very close precision. When you look at the power law, it's not, to me. So if you listen to Plan C, and when he does interviews, I listen to. He's phenomenal. If you want to listen to someone who is very well grounded, is not going to bull post you or be overzealous with price prediction, he's fantastic, right? So the way he describes it is it enables people to sort of double down on their position, right? You look at it and say Bitcoin hits 200K today. The quantile method will look at it and say, well, we're overheated at the moment. It's not the best time to buy. Don't sell your position, right? Because it's obviously going to be a lot higher in the future, but it's probably not the best time to continue to DCA, right? And then it will tell you on the inverse where there is value, there is opportunity. Now is probably the good time to really stack. And for most of Bitcoin's life, like where we are today, we're kind of in that sort of transition middle zone. It's the yellow zone where it just bobbles. It's kind of it's in the takeoff zone. It could go up, it could go down, but at the moment, I think it'll hit the upside in the next 3 to 6 months. So to me, it's not okay. I know we're going to be higher. It's not, are we going to be $10 million in 5 years' time? It's not telling. I don't really care about the price. I know it's going to be higher, right? I just want to see where I'm going to get my value. And it's sort of when we drop, say, 50%, then I don't have to talk to people and sort of confirm my own bias. I can just look at the data and I can say, hey, we've been in this position before, right? And it was a perfect time to continue to stack more Bitcoin. So we're going through it again now. Then I know that in 5 years' time we're going to be higher. The price doesn't matter. It's it could be 300, it could be 500, it could be 250 or whatever. I know it's going to be higher, so it's a perfect time to continue to stack. So that's the way I look at it. I mean, it does say by 2034 that will range between 800 and 1.2 million, around that sort of 2034, 2032 area, and that's US dollars. So to me, like, you can call Michael Saylor, a grifter or a seller or whatever you want to call him. He's right when he says, we're getting a 90% discount today, which I believe is true because I know it's going higher. The level of adoption will continue as more people see it, right? So I just use the power law and the quantile method to basically just confirm when I'm getting more value for my dollar, right? And that's the best time. There's no worse time, no bad time to buy Bitcoin. But if you want more Bitcoin for your dollar, then it will give you the best time, in my opinion.
Right, that's interesting. So is it fair to assume that you don't DCA, or do you wait for Bitcoin to go on sale, or do you have like a strategy where you a certain percentage you DCA and a certain percentage you leave aside for those,
Good question.
dips?
So right now I'm kind of I'm out of Fiat, right? Because I believe getting in at 100K or 90K or 120K, we're so far from where this is going that I'm happy to just buy whenever I get money, right? It's only, I think for me personally, I'll probably stop once we hit around that 150 over the next. So time and price is very important. 150 in 3 months' time is very different to 150 in 2 years' time, right? So if we hit 150 in the next 3 to 6 months, I'll stop. If it's
When
150
everyone else is FOMOing in, that's when you stop.
correct. 100%. When we had Michael Saylor's 100K party at the start of the year, I was like, this is getting a bit, a bit, how you doing? Bit too overzealous here, I think. So I pulled back my position, my buying. I still bought earlier, right? And lo and behold, we hit mid-70s. I think we hit 73K in around, I think it was around Feb, March-ish time. So, yeah, I used to FOMO, but I don't anymore. And I always tell people, even when we hit 120, I had a friend come out to me and say, oh, I'm missing out. I said, yeah, relax. I said, we'll consolidate and we'll come back down. And here we are. Because the fair value currently has Bitcoin the power laws has Bitcoin at a fair value of 100K today. So yes, we hit 120, which is great. But I mean, we're still over fair value at 107K today. So people look at it and think, oh, we're down. Well, we're not really. We're over fair value. And this thing could hit, 100K, or it could go down to 98K in September, and we'd still be around that fair value. And I mean, we could teleport from 98K to 130K in a matter of a week, right? We both know this. We've been in Bitcoin long enough to understand that Bitcoin performs its best. It makes 90% of its move in like 10% of the year, not even probably 11 days of the year, right? So I'd rather have my money in than not have my money in, right? But I just know when I'm getting more value for my money. So that's literally all I use these models for. People, look at them as gospel. I kind of don't really do that. And it's worked for me.
Yeah. I've noticed a certain behavior in myself and in others when once you have that moment that Bitcoin clicks in for you and you want to buy some, most people, what they do, and I did the same thing, is like I FOMO in. I remember I bought just before the halving and thinking, it's going to go crazy after the halving, and that didn't happen. And if I had just DCA'd and relaxed, I would have gotten much more Bitcoin for my money instead of trying to like lump sum buy my way in. I don't regret it. Obviously, like I'm significantly up, but do you have advice for people who are like, some people got like 500,000 to spend and they want to buy in now? Like, what's your advice for those folks?
That's a good question. Personally, if I had 500K today, again, it comes back to your why. Are you in to make a short-term buck? If you are, Bitcoin, it's going to be several other things that are going to outperform Bitcoin. I mean, you could probably buy Nvidia, or you can buy, Fiat coin, or there's another one called SPX 69,000. You could buy those coins and they'll probably outperform Bitcoin over the next 6 months. So go buy that. So to me, it comes down to my why. And I'm in this long term. My 500K, like if I'm investing 500K today, I know that according to the research I've done personally, in 2034, around that time, we're going to 10x, right? To me, it's you could DCA over the next 6 months, or you could just lump it in now and just kind of like sit back and chill. But if someone's, doesn't understand Bitcoin and we go from, 107K down to 50K tomorrow, are they going to freak out? I often ask people that before they do it. Would you freak out? If you're yes, then I wouldn't advise you to buy, right? I mean, at the beginning of the year, because I don't like to sell my properties, and this is not advice to anyone, but I refinanced my properties and I extracted equity, and it was over 6 figures. And at the time, I just lumped it into Bitcoin straight away. I think I did it in 2 parts, literally a day apart, right? because of the banks. They wouldn't let me do it all at once. But that's another story, right? So to me, it was, again, it came down to my why. And I remember at the time I bought it for, I think it was around that sailor, just before the Sailors 100K party. So I bought it around the high 98s, I think it was. And then it dropped to 70K. So my six-figure investment went down by 30%, right? Did I care? Honestly, I can tell you hand on heart, I did not care. And you know what, to know something? I even gloated to put, like, my family. I said, you know that six-figure sum I put in? I've lost 30%. And they're, like, freaking out. And I couldn't care less. Like, I wore it like a badge of honor. I actually wanted it to drop even more. I don't know why, because I'm the type of person that if everyone's investing in something, I don't want to be part of it. I want to be different, right? Which is why I got into Bitcoin in the first place. So I'm kind of sad whenever, I meet someone who I'd consider a normie and they've dabbled in Bitcoin. They've go, oh yeah, I own Bitcoin. I'm kind of like, oh, great. Like, it's getting out there in the mainstream now. Great. So I like it being fringe. I like that the volatility scares people. I love it, right? So for me, it just suits me. It's like I cannot have enough. I sold my Rolex watch and I bought more Bitcoin. I'm selling things just to buy more Bitcoin. And again, I don't FOMO because I know that if I FOMO in at 120K, I'm not going to get as much Bitcoin for my dollar. And my goal is more Bitcoin, right? So why would I FOMO when I can just relax and chill? I know the price is going to come down and I'll be able to get more Bitcoin for my dollar. I'm greedy. I love Bitcoin. I want more Bitcoin. I just want more Bitcoin than everyone else in the world, right? So, so yeah, that's why I love it. Everything about Bitcoin, from the volatility to the thesis to the white paper to the anonymity to how quick it is to the revolution, it just suits me personally, and I'm kind of sad that I have property as well. But we'll solve that issue in the future.
But you mentioned your family. I'm very interested to know what your inner circle of like family and friends, what are their opinions on Bitcoin, and have you managed to successfully orange pill?
Good question. My immediate family, my mum sort of goes with what I go with, so she likes Bitcoin. Yeah, so, but she doesn't have any Bitcoin. I'm trying to get my little niece into Bitcoin, and her coming in, looking at my miners and building the Lego blocks together, getting stickers, putting it on a bench top next to her bed. It's kind of like, I always say be for Bitcoin, and whenever I wear it or if I've got my socks, she'll see it and she'll come up and she'll touch it and she'll go, ooh, be for Bitcoin kind of thing. So I'm trying to orange pill her, whereas I think my brother, I don't want to dox him or anything like that, but he doesn't like it because, let's just say the whole, the Silk Road and the whole criminals thing. So I think there was a criminal in Australia who stole a lot of Bitcoin. Can't remember how much it was. I think it was like 50 Bitcoin at the time. He associates Bitcoin with the dark web and crims, right? And and I think he looks at that and he also then associates it with, degens, crypto bros, crypto traders and stuff like that, right? So he looks at it like that, and he hasn't done the research. He's not a reader, doesn't read books or anything like that. So he's been sold, and you literally cannot change his mind. And it's funny because with the price going from 50K to 120K, it means nothing to him. It's like, oh yeah, this thing will go to zero, right? Because he saw the Silk Road and he saw the whole criminal thing. I think it was like 2016, 17, right? When Bitcoin was significantly cheaper. So to him, if he's not going to be impressed from it going from a few $1,000s to, 180,000 Australian dollars, I don't think he's ever going to be impressed. I don't think he's ever going to get on board. Even if it hits, $1 million Australian dollars, he'll think, oh yeah, this is just going to go down. Everyone that's, in $1 million, it's going to go down to zero. So yeah, it's my older brother. He's probably too smart for his own good. I think when people are too intelligent, they sort of convince themselves that it's not good, right? It's funny. It's like, yeah, I've often seen the most intelligent people not do the research. It's like they're so sure in themselves that no, what I know is correct. I'm not willing to have an open mind and research. Oh, am I wrong? And I guess you can sort of say the same thing for Warren Buffett, right? So, yeah, I haven't been able to convince my direct family. My uncle, on the other hand, I've mentioned this before, he owns a small little practice, right? And I think at the time he had an IT system and it was hacked. I think this was in 2017, right? I don't know the details of it, but basically the hacker gave him a ransom and said, I'll unlock your system if you meet me in a car park at a McDonald's and you give me Bitcoin, right? I don't know how. So he ended up, I think he spoke to someone at the time and he bought the Bitcoin. I don't know if he had it on a USB or something at the time. And he met up with this person and he gave them the Bitcoin and they unlocked his system. The hacker unlocked his system. Now, I don't know why he just didn't go to the police or whatever. I don't know the details, right? But I think he's still got some Bitcoin left over. Now, my uncle, you got to understand my uncle. I think he's a late boomer. So I think he's just turned 60 and he's heavily into, commercial real estate. He's into residential real estate. He's into, just get a savings account, put your money in your offset account, that sort of thing, right? But his Bitcoin, he's still got it, right? And he's lucky because he's extremely well off that he probably said, you know what, I'm just going to keep it. I don't need the money. I'm going to see what it does. And it's obviously outperformed everything that he owns. He's probably got, say he had one Bitcoin, right? He's probably seen it go from 2,000 Australian dollars to 180,000. And he's like, what the hell is this kind of thing, right? So he doesn't knock it, but he hasn't gone down the rabbit hole because I believe it still sits on an exchange. Because I have mentioned whenever I see him at Christmas time, I have mentioned that, you need to buy a wallet, take it off the exchange because if the exchange goes down, you lose your Bitcoin and all that sort of thing, right? So he's got enough to look at it and it sort of piques his interest. But to him, he doesn't need to pour it all in because he's extremely well off, right? So it's funny. It's family. It's family. I'm very reluctant to sort of push it too much. But yeah, but normies and people that I meet off the street, I'm okay with doing it because I kind of don't really care what they think of me. You know what I mean? So, it's in my family, it's not really something, it's like, oh, Andy's in it. That's okay. How is it doing today? But that's it. That's the level of it is, that they don't know much else. The old question, what is Bitcoin? I can't touch it, is very popular with my family. So, and I'm very reluctant to, shove a book in their face and all that kind of thing. So, it's a difficult one with your family. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. My parents are similar. And when I first got into Bitcoin, I got warned by basically everyone that, said like when you're new into it, you go through an overzealous phase and you want to tell everyone about it. And I can say I definitely went through that phase. I am mellowing out now and starting to think more strategically, okay, like just let people know that they can reach out to you if and when they want to and leave it at that. But with my parents, I found like the best life hack is through this podcast because they're sick of hearing me talk about it every single day against their will. And now that they're like fans of my podcast, every Saturday they tune in and they listen to the new episode, and then seeing all these different people from different walks of life talk about it from their lens, whether it's philosophical, whether it's cypherpunk, whether it's traditional finance, whether it's someone who's well known or someone who's, you know, a pleb. They really are like starting to open their mind to it, and they're like getting curious about it. I wonder if with your mum and dad you can just buy some Bitcoin on their behalf and give them a watch-only wallet. Like, just putting that out there.
I could do that. My dad, you know, he's a mid-70s sort of Maltese guy. I think for him if he was younger, I think it'd be something he would definitely be interested in. My mum is just my mum. She just does whatever I do. If Andy does it, it's a good idea kind of thing, right? Yeah. To be honest, I'm like, not every decision I make is obviously correct, right? But it's funny because, you know, even when I buy a property, you know, I always get the whole don't buy there, right? So, for example, in 2017, I bought a block of land on the surf coast of Victoria. So there's a suburb called Armstrong Creek, which is about 5 minutes north of Torquay. Everyone knows Torquay. And at the time, blocks of land in Torquay were going for like $700,000, right? Just for a small 350 square meter block. And so I saw Armstrong Creek, and it's like there was nothing there, right? And they were only developing the land at the time. And one block of land, you know, cost $169,000. And I thought, hang on, okay, why not? So I ended up buying a block. And I remember at the time, because I was working in Melbourne, but we had an office out in Geelong, which wasn't very far. And I had to go sign some documents one day after work. So I worked in our Geelong office, and people were like, oh, why are you here? And I said, oh, you know, I just got to go sign some documents because I, you know, bought a block of land out in Armstrong Creek. And they're like, oh, because they're all locals, right? They're like, oh, why did you buy in Armstrong Creek? It's swamp land. It's disgusting. You're never going to make any money, and you know you're going to lose money. Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Yes, exactly. There's nothing there. So people are like, they told me not to do it, and if I had listened to them, I wouldn't have done it. So I ended up building a house, putting a house on there, renting it out in 2019. So just before COVID hit, right? And at the time, I was struggling to find a tenant for like, I think my rent was like $400 a week. But then COVID hit, and the property I'd built for $400,000 had been revalued to $800,000 because everyone was moving out of Melbourne to the coast. My rent went from $400 a week to $650 a week overnight, literally overnight. And I was kind of like, if I had listened to people, I would have missed out on all these gains. And I did it. And it's something that I listened to myself. Even in 2023, when I bought a house in the north of Melbourne, I think everywhere in 2022, the whole, you know, even Bitcoin had suffered. Everything had drawn down. I went to auctions to buy a house, and no one was there. Literally, it was like a ghost town. I went to an auction. I bought 2 properties that year, and I was the only bidder. It's like the auctioneer would say, throw out a price for the starting price, and I'm like, I look around, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And they're like, oh, we're going to have to pass it in.
Going twice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Still me.
So, and even on forums, people would be like, oh, why are you buying out there for? You know, there's too many housos, there's murders. And I'm thinking, well, you know, Fitzroy and Carlton and all that, the crime rates out there are phenomenal. They're so high, right? And there's a lot of public housing. Like, and the prices out there are just, you know, you can't buy anything less than over $1 million. And you're telling me that this is going to impact. So I bought, and the property price went from high 500s, as I said earlier, it's 730 overnight, literally overnight. And so I kind of just don't like to listen to people. I found that everything that I've done has worked out well. Touch wood, right? My mum kind of goes with me, and I think she's like seen what I've done, and I've stuck to my guns, and it's paid off. It's like it's all paid off pretty well, and that's why I don't listen to Warren Buffett. I don't listen to crypto bros, crypto traders, and short-term noise, because I know where things are going. I know the government's going to continue to debase our currency. Like, if you want to buy a shitcoin and live with that for the rest of your life and constantly lose money, then all the power to you. But personally, that's not me. I'm just going to continue to do what I do best and what I know and what I've researched and what economists like Saifedean Ammous has said, that it's inevitable. Money printing is inevitable. So yeah, that's just how I see it.
I love Saifedean Ammous, and his book is the one that orange pilled me. So I just feel forever grateful to this man because he changed my life. And I think I recently tweeted that as well. And he's like, "This made my day," and I'm like, "You made my life." Yeah, no, he's great. I like him. I mean, I've read other books as well since that, which I really love. But that one will always hold a special place in my heart because it was the book for me.
Have you read Fiat Food and Principles of Economics?
No, I'm going to actually order the whole set again because I only have the hard copy of the Bitcoin Standard, which I've highlighted, but I want to get the whole set, and then I want to get some like spare Bitcoin Standard books just to give out like as gifts. Yes, I'm going to do that, and I think there's 10% if you buy with Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I've got Principles of Economics, and I've got Fiat Food. And Fiat Food's an interesting one because it's kind of like you can apply the whole, debasement of currency and how that impacts not only, investing, but food, music, even housing. I mean, the house I live in now is 1960, right? And I've built new houses before, as I mentioned, the one in Torquay. And, the quality is completely different. Like I ripped off a lot of even if you just look at the plaster, right? The plaster of this house, my house is nothing special, right? It's a tiny house built in 1960. So I bought this house off the original owner, who's in his mid-90s, right? And in the kitchen, there was too many cracks, so I was removing the plaster. And the plaster is such good quality. There's all this horsehair in it, and it's so thick, right, that you can't just put a hammer in it and just try and rip it off. You can't rip it with your hands. I literally had to grab a saw and saw it all the way down to the very bottom because it was just so thick and coarse. Now, the insulation quality of it is insanely good, right? These days, the plaster is like paper. It's like cardboard. Why is that, right? It's because our dollar is worth less. Things are getting more expensive, right? And to have that similar sort of quality of life that we can't build with the same material, because this house to build today would cost you, $600,000, right? It's like people don't see why, right? So to me, even the wood, I mean, we used hardwood. It's so hard to nail into because the property of it is so thick. I mean, it's too expensive even to use, hardwood that is farmed. We have to use pine, right? Pine that rots so quickly, that it's so soft. You can literally just tap a nail into it. It's just the quality of the material today compared to even in the 80s and 90s when it sort of started to become subpar is vastly different. And I strongly believe it's due to the debasement of our currency. A lower standard of living, including our food, our music, is due to that, right? People that don't see this, I believe they have some sort of Stockholm syndrome where they think that the printing of money is a good thing for them. It could be so further from the truth.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every time I
No.
go to the supermarket, I just look at the food and like look at the whole supermarket. I'm like, 80 to 90% of this is not even real food. Like
No.
that's how bad things have gotten. Overall, I think our collective standards have dropped so much that if you're the type of person who wants to eat real food, wants to exercise, wants to have real relationships, have real like respect for your body and your mind, you're almost seen as like weird. And it is all because our standards, collective standards, have dropped so much. And I really hope that, if anything else, that we change that sooner rather than later, because this is just really, really bad. And if you look at it from a holistic perspective, it just becomes so obvious that this is what's happening. So I'm trying my best to do what I can to help educate people. And yeah. Do you have any final thoughts? Like, how can people find you if they want to connect with you? If you want to be connected with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I love talking about Bitcoin and anything that's not laissez-faire. So you can connect with me on X. You can find me on X, Andy_Surfy. I used to surf, just to throw it out there, when I was like 16. Hence why I knew about Torquay. And you can find me on Instagram, Andy Boy. Boy spelled B-O-I-I. No, sorry, B-O-I-I. I even have a TikTok. I genuinely believe that getting out on Instagram and TikTok, because you're not preaching to the converted. So I think it's important to not only go on your X. X sometimes feels like an echo chamber. I've heard it all before. I love it because it's good community. But I feel like going elsewhere, venturing out, is also important as well. So, yeah, you can find me there. Happy to connect with anybody.
Awesome. And are you going to join any Bitcoin meetups in the future? I can send you links. Pressure. There's actually really awesome people in Melbourne, like really, really good Bitcoiners. And I know a lot of people from there because they go to the Bush Bashers. So, I connected with them in the Bustleton one, in Parks and Palm Cove. There's a lot of really, really great Victorian Bitcoiners. And I think you're missing out if you're not connecting.
Yes, I know. I will definitely do that. 100%. I will. I'd love to go to any sort of meetup. I've been to property meetups in the past. I'm on the property forums and things like that. But I do preach about Bitcoin probably a little bit too much there, and they absolutely detest it. So I'm kind of reluctant to go there anymore. But yeah, always, like I told you, if Bitcoin hits 200K by the end of the year, I'm going to drive up north and go hang out with a cool bunch of people.
Yay! You could also get the t-shirt that says, I told you so at 200K and show up to the property meetup and just see how many friends you make.
You know what? I wear this and no one cares. Like, no one cares. It's actually funny. When we first did 100K, I wore this in the city of Melbourne where it was so busy. So I was walking down Burke Street. No one cared. Literally nobody looked at me. I had maybe 2 or 3 people just look at me, but that's it. When I'm talking thousands of people walking past me. No one cares. That's how early we are. I genuinely think we're still early.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right, Andy, thanks for your time.
No problems. Thank you for having me.
That's it for this week on The Honest Money Show. Big thanks to Bitteroo. Check out why more Aussies are choosing them at bitteroo.com.au. And shout out to our listeners on Fountain, where you can earn sats just by tuning in. If you appreciate the way we cut through the noise, you can support us directly via the QR code in the episode notes. Until next week, take care of yourself and your money.